Alright guys, as you probably know, Eminem put out a new album, Kamikaze, and this was kind of a response to his revival album from 2017 that didn't do so well. And so a lot of what we have to talk about today are responses to revival, and we're gonna jump into those. Hey everybody, I'm Clifford Stemmy, the Pop Song Professor. Welcome to my channel where we make English class awesome by explaining and sometimes roasting song lyrics on school days. If you watch this daily show, you'll learn what your favorite lyrics mean, how to write song lyrics, and a whole lot more. And today, we are discussing Eminem's new album, Kamikaze. And I don't want you to think that this is gonna be, we're not gonna explain every single line, and there might be some lines in here that you think that we should talk about that we won't be able to get to. But what we're gonna try to do is highlight the main idea of each song in the album, and then there are a couple of lines in each song that I think are probably interesting or worth discussing, are ones that I really think help highlight where Eminem is right now as an artist. So we kind of want to use Kamikaze as an attempt to understand who Eminem is. This is going to be kind of more of a discussion focus rather than a pure explanation or a pure review, so I'm really curious to hear what you guys have to say in the comments down below. The Ringer is probably the most interesting song from this album, and a lot of it is just about how people are putting him through the ringer. There's a lot of songs on this album that are diss tracks, and there's definitely some dissing in this one. Listen to these lines here. I'm sorry, wait, what's your talent? Oh, critiquing my talent. Oh bitch, I don't know who the F y'all are to give a subpar bar or even have an opinion of you. You mention me, millions of views, attention and news. I mention you, lose for me, win-win for you, billions of views, your 10 cents or two, skim through the music to give shit reviews, to get clicks, but bitch, you just light the fuse. So he's saying that people apparently, like, it sounds like he's talking about YouTubers to an extent, or people who just put out videos talking about his music, and he's saying that, you know, just putting my name in your title or my face in your thumbnail is gonna get people to click. I guess since you're watching that right now, that kind of worked, I guess. But we're not necessarily here to say bad things about him. So the next lines are, these are things that I'd rather do than hear you on a mic. Since 9/10 of your rhyme is about ice, and Jesus Christ, man, how many times is someone gonna F on my bitch? This is where Eminem and I are kindred spirits, because he's really pointing out that rap and hip hop have oftentimes, some artists have almost nothing to say. 9/10 of your rhyme are about ice or diamonds or jewelry, and how many times are you gonna F on my bitch? How many times are you gonna try to steal my girl? Like, that shows up so many times. I 100% agree with him. And those of you who are fans of NF might appreciate this line right here. I'd just be like everyone else in the effing industry, especially an effing recovery clone of me. And Eminem actually says an effing, which really suggests that he could be talking about NF, a Christian rapper who's been said to sound a lot like him. And then we get into this line here, I'm gonna crumble you and I'll take a number 2 and dump on you if you ain't Joyner, if you ain't Kendrick or Cole or Sean, then you're a goner. So he's mentioning 4 different artists who he thinks are actually really good rappers. So in the midst of this diss track, he's giving some compliments. And then down here he says, in reference to Donald Trump and the Donald Trump cipher that he did, but I think it's working. These verses are making him a wee bit nervous, and he's too scared to answer me with words because he knows that he will lyrically get murdered. But I know at least he's heard it, because Agent Orange, Donald Trump, just sent the Secret Service to meet in person to see if I really thinking of hurting him, or ask if I'm linked to terrorists. I said only when it comes to ink and lyricists. I don't know that Donald Trump has probably heard that Eminem has put out that cipher. I mean, how can he not have heard about it? But it doesn't necessarily, the way that the Secret Service works, at least from what little I know, it's probably not Donald Trump saying, all right, guys, go send somebody to check him out. It's probably just the Secret Service's job to go and keep track of and do stuff like that. I don't really know exactly what lyrics and raps are supposed to do to hurt somebody like that when, I mean, everybody is already saying tons of bad things about him anyway. But those are Eminem's thoughts on the result. Next we hit the song Greatest, and that's the second song on the album, and it's also, it's mostly just talking about how great Eminem is. It's less focused on dissing, though I think there are some elements of disses in there, but it's more just talking about why he's great. And he says here, feeling like I'm headed for a padded cell, the bar for me, what I rap isn't fair, but guess what, that's the standard I'm held to. But if something like that doesn't tell you, you set a mark too high when platinum sales are looked at as a failure. He's saying, I believe that he's talking about Revival there, and getting high sales on Revival, but people still thinking that it was poorly done and that he didn't sell that many. And he's saying that because of his previous success, expectations are too high. Next, let's go ahead and talk about Lucky You, and we're not gonna say too much about it other than just to highlight a couple of lines that I really feel like a kindred spirit with Eminem on, because he says, "You had a couple of ghostwriters, but to these kids that don't actually matter. They asking me what the F happened to hip hop, I said I don't have any answers." And he's talking about artists like Post Malone who don't say what they have to say. Like, they're not the ones, it's not their voices speaking, they're just hiring other people to write lyrics for them so that they can sound cool. He continues, "But nothing is feeling like anyone has any effing ability to even stick to a subject. It's killing me. The inability to pin humility. Hada tada ba ta ta. Why don't we make a bunch of effing songs about nothing and mumble them?" And that's him going after mumble rappers. I think those are some pretty interesting lines there. In the song Normal, it's about a girl who he's in a relationship with, and he's asking, "Why can't you just be normal?" He says, "I just want you to be normal. Why can't you bitches be normal? Always gotta be so extra. Why you always need a lecture?" And there's a lot of violence and a lot of hypocrisy in this song, as there seems to be physical violence done between both him and the girl. And it's actually a little bit frightening. You would hope that somebody in his 40s would kind of like figured this out by now. So it's an interesting song to hear from Eminem's perspective, and it's probably, the flow on it's a little bit awkward, so it's probably one of the weaker songs on the album, especially because I don't think it's completely being true to who Eminem is. I think when he talks about subjects like this, he starts to sound less like himself. In Stepping Stone, it's about his old crew and apologizing for things not going the right way. It's a little bit awkwardly done as well, not one of the songs I would necessarily recommend from the album, whereas songs like, you know, Kamikaze or The Ringer seem to be much more Eminem, and he seems to be much more in his element and confident what he's talking about. He sounds, I think, sincere on Stepping Stone as he apologizes for things not going the right way for his crew, but it is weird to hear Eminem apologize for sure. In We Are Not Alike, it's a trap beat, and so it's a little bit ironic and tongue-in-cheek in just the way that it's produced, but he is dissing people a lot. And this is the one where he disses MGK, Machine Gun Kelly, who then dissed him back. He says, "But next time you don't gotta use Tech 9 if you wanna come at me with a submachine gun. And I'm talking to you, but you already know who the F you are, Kelly. I don't use sublims and sure as F don't sneak this, but keep commenting on my daughter, Haley," referencing Machine Gun Kelly saying that Eminem's 16-year-old daughter at the time was hot, and Eminem getting kind of mad about that. Probably understandably, honestly. In Kamikaze, he's basically saying that he doesn't care what people think and that he's willing to take other people down, even if it means himself going down or himself getting hurt. He raps, "Smash into everyone, crash into everything, back and I've just begun, FAC 2017, FAC on everyone." FAC was a song that he released, I think back in 2005, that people really didn't like, and I don't know the whole backstory behind this song, but people really didn't like it. It was one of his least well-received songs, and so when he says he's going to FAC 2017, obviously it's a pun on the F word, but he's also saying that, like, I'm just gonna do whatever I want. I don't care what you guys think. I'm gonna go back and commit that old mistake. Even though you guys didn't like it before, I'm not learning from that because it's not about you, it's about what I wanna do. And so I thought that, you know, that fit really well with the themes and the idea of Kamikaze. Of course, with Fall, he says at the beginning, "You know everybody's been telling me what they think about me for the last few months. Maybe it's time I tell them what I think about them." And I've already done a video explaining the lyrics and the music video for this song, and so I'm gonna just link that in the description, let you guys watch that. It's interesting. He's basically saying, "I'm not going to fall," and there's a lot more dissing on it as well. In Nice Guy, it's a dysfunctional relationship. Nice Guy and Good Guy could be metaphors for the hip-hop industry, and I think a lot of people will listen to these songs and say, oh, it's a metaphor for the hip-hop industry and how he doesn't have a good relationship with the award shows or the system or the radio play or whatever. But on the surface level, at least, it's very much a dysfunctional relationship. He accuses this girl, he says, "You say don't come over because you got pink eye, but I think I got just the thing. Why don't I bring my effing bat and just swing by?" Obviously a pun, the bat and the swing, but he's threatening physical violence, same old Slim Shady, and that's how the relationship goes. He's accusing her of cheating, she probably is cheating it sounds like, but he's gonna respond with physical violence. In Good Guy, things get a little bit nicer and he feels a little bit calmer. It seems to be sort of about the same relationship. He says, "Here we go again, from heroes to villains. Used to be your Romeo, but we both were jilted." So we both suffered, and they're trying to figure it out, and he's trying to like make himself come across as a good guy. Jessie Reyez is the one singing the melody on this one, and she is more talking about like, oh yeah, you know what, it sells well if we tell people you were the good guy. It wasn't really true, seems to be what she's saying. But I wouldn't say that Nice Guy or Good Guy are particularly the standout tracks on this album. It's interesting that Eminem is still thinking about relationships and talking about them at the same time as dissing people. And so it really seems, you know, if we had to make a caricature of who Eminem is at this point, he's somebody who raps a lot, and he's somebody who's trying to find an emotional connection with other people. And I think that as long as you're an angry person who advocates this kind of violence, which he's probably not actually advocating the violence, it's probably him talking about what he feels like doing. Until you can control that, it's gonna be difficult to find a good relationship. Really, honestly, to be in a good relationship, something I've learned, you've gotta be a good person. You've gotta work on yourself first before you can go and be with somebody else who's gonna complete you or be a good fit for you. And I don't know that that's necessarily what Eminem needs to hear. He probably knows that, and he's probably working on that to some extent. But it's just interesting to hear him talking about this with a certain level of self-awareness, but not enough self-awareness to where he's saying, you know, maybe I need to change and be a better person. He might allude to that a couple of times, but it's never very serious or a long-lasting commitment. Finally, we have the song VENOM, which there are some interesting lines in this one, and this was part of the soundtrack for the new MCU movie, Venom. He says, I said knock knock, let the devil in, alien, E. Elliot, phone home, ain't no telling when this chokehold on this game will end, I'm loco, because became a symbiote, which is a reference to Venom. So my fangs are in your throat, ho, you're snake bitten with my venom. Then later on, this one's interesting because he's kind of talking about his music's effect as if though it were the symbiote. So escaping me is impossible, I latched onto you like a parasite, and probably ruined your parents' life and your childhood too through his music. So parents are trying to keep their kids from listening to his music, and the kids are becoming bad and the parents are becoming mad. Because if I'm the music that y'all grew up on, I'm responsible for you retarded fools. I'm the supervillain dad and mom was losing their marbles too. So he's basically saying that, yeah, he and his music are that parasite on, you know, the existence of the people who listen to him, which is, it's an interesting concept. I don't know if that's the legacy that I would want to leave, but I think it works as a metaphor. All right, guys, that is my explanation and discussion of this album from Kamikaze. And I think that my question for you is, first of all, what do you think of this album? And second of all, who do you think Eminem is saying that he is through this album? I think that's the question that really prompts us is, you know, he is coming back hard after the failure of Revival. And so what does it say about him? What does it say about him that he's introducing a lot of these disses and is really making that the focus of this whole album? And what does it say about him that he's also mixing in this discussion of relationships into the album? Those are the questions that I have and that I'd like to watch more interviews and try to get to know Eminem a little bit better through, but we'll see how that goes. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I hope that, you know, if you have a suggestion for an Eminem song we should explain, comment it down below, and I'll talk to you next time.